PlaTonic by maybe Mythos. I dip the nib of my quill into an inkwell. Sign your pen name. Jean. As I step out from my candlelit cabin and into the darkness of night, my eyes are immediately affixed to the night sky. Familiar glowing orbs float lazily around the forest and into my field of vision. I step into the familiar clearing of my backyard, fallen leaves crunching underfoot. The gust of crisp autumn breeze whips at my cloak, threatening to blow off my hood. But, awestruck, I do not dare to take my gaze off the twinkling stars. One could never get used to this sight. In moments like these, I can't help but wonder if I should be sharing this with someone else. A slight shiver runs up my body, snapping me from my trance. Right, I came out here for a reason. I lightly shake the can of treats in my right hand and balance the offering for the Fae in the other. This has been a recent routine of mine that I've grown quite fond of. Little glowing eyes follow my every move as I refill each feeder with its respective food. Once finished, I take a seat on a nearby stump, and it's my turn to watch them as they tentatively approach to feast. Some are more bold than others. I particularly fancy the dull yet humorous toads. The toads are an amusing bunch. Tonight's tongue brawl is on, effectively slapping each other for stealing a tomato worm. It's my new equivalent of the nightly pub fights back in my old village. And an orange leaf falls atop a particularly unfortunate soul, and all the other frogs quickly turn to the sudden movement. And then, abruptly, they begin bombarding the leaf and by proxy the other toad with their tongues until it has had enough and hops away. I feel like I've made a little safe haven for them. Originally, only one or two creatures would creep out while I watch from my kitchen window. Now, whole families of creatures venture into the clearing together while I sit a short distance away. It's odd. I so rarely see any of them traveling alone now. It's always in pairs and groups. I'm choosing to not get jealous over the creatures right now. Leaving them to it, I start carefully arranging the tea set on an extremely large mushroom. It's very jiggly, so I have to be cautious to make sure nothing spills. The Fae are a mischievous bunch, but I also protect our forests far better than my fellow humans. In hopes of maintaining good terms, I leave them offerings. I basically live on the outskirts of their land, and I'm very honored to be here. The last resident was essentially chased out of home. The details are fuzzy about the whole incident, but fortunately, it made this home very affordable in the time where I was desperate for a place to start my business. I don't know how I differ from the previous fellow, but I must be doing something right. It's been nearly a year since I decided to open up a potion shop in these woods. It's a dream I had been pursuing ever since I was a child. With a stroke of luck, I heard about this place. My patrons are mainly adventurers traveling to and fro between the human-populated lands and the fairy circle. Living on the border of these wilds and ancient lands is an interesting experience to say the least. peculiar incidents occurs nearly every day. Most humans do not know much about who or what is inside the ring, as much as the Fae do not take kindly to us. My knowledge is the bare minimum, enough to survive, such as not to follow will-o-wisps, not to tell strangers your name, and to keep clear of suspicious mushroom rings. And so, the last task on tonight's list, a pouring of today's old tonic. Tonics are not a super common brew that I create. I mostly work with non-healing potions, so when I do make them, I use them as plant food in my garden. Nothing harmful is in these, and the occasional drink for my plants is always nice. I make my way over to the trellis on the side of my home. Swirling purple liquid sloshes about in the cauldron I'm carrying. I should really... A struggling breath escapes me as I pant. Really... Lift more. Uh-oh. Quickening my pace as I feel my hold slipping, I end up stumbling over some roots in my haste. The tonic splashes all over my poor plants. Normally, I would rush to get a towel and wipe off whatever I could. However, it's almost the witching hour, and it's extremely dark. I may be a wizard, but I am a responsible one. I wake at dawn to tend to my potion business. My poor pumpkin children will have to wait. I always try to aim specifically for the bases of the stems because liquid left on the leaves can promote disease and fungal issues. Hopefully, tomorrow's sparse sunlight will dry them quickly. As I'm heading back inside, I hear a crackle of some twigs and shuffling of dead leaves. Perhaps another visitor has arrived for a snack. I consider going to investigate, but I find I'm far too tired from the long day. Not only do I find myself physically exhausted, but somewhat emotionally drained as well. I find great joy in bringing treats to the creatures of the forest. However, there is something about their companionship with one another that leaves me feeling uncertain. Gently, I pressed the door closed, careful not to disturb my little woodland neighbors. So, is tonight gonna be one of those nights? I heave a sigh and slump onto a wooden chair, reaching over to a nearby shelf. My index finger idly runs along the spines of many books that clutter the space. Nearly every single one of these novels feature romance in one way or another. Some lean heavily into the idea of protagonists being incomplete until they find their other half. Then suddenly, life seems to fall into place for them. Rarer so, the protagonist goes on a journey of self-discovery, learning to be happy alone, but even then, end up with a partner now that they are ready. If not the main plot, then the romance is a side plot to make for a lovely happy ending, tying it all up nicely with a bow. Protagonists that are happy single throughout the entirety of a novel, at the last second being thrown a lover as though an afterthought. What are my thoughts about romance overall beyond the book genre? I am indifferent to it. I don't always quite understand the appeal when romance is in novels, but I will read them. It's not necessarily a reason why I would pick up a book, but it won't drive me away either. Sometimes the occasional romance is very well written, a wonderful emotional connection, a bond formed, but it can quickly become quite an oversaturated and boring. I think there are many cases where a plot would be better off without the added romance. And it seems a little obvious that I should want a lover in a sense. I don't want to be forever alone. I don't want to forever be my friends' second priority to their partners. Being able to have a casual physical intimacy with another sounds nice. If there was a way to live with all my friends and be closer to them without it being strange, and for them to feel the same way as I do about our friendship, I definitely would leap at the opportunity. I wish that friendship was seen more like romantic feelings, like an anchor that makes you stay close to someone. I just don't really get it, I suppose. I don't particularly enjoy entertaining these thoughts because they're not followed by solutions. Instead, there is a sense of despair, dread, like I teeter on the precipice of the unknown. I opt to avoid these monologues by busying myself with the many other aspects of my life. Pushing myself up from my seat, I pad over to my bedroom. My mind is wandering to such topics is a strong indication that I should rest. Slipping into some night clothes, I became situated underneath the covers of my large bed. You couldn't pay me to have a smaller mattress. I love stretching over the entirety of this thing. I use the whole space to its fullest potential. Getting comfortable, I accidentally grazed the minor acid burn that runs along the back of my other hand. Ah yes, today's batch of healing tonics didn't work out. It was a good day as any to give that new recipe a shot. I realize now that I need to exercise more caution when handling herbs in this area. Some of them can be quite dangerous if you're ill-prepared, hence my acid burn. Most recipes call for fairly mundane ingredients you can simply grow in your garden. But some of the most potent potions, like that healing tonic, require components that certainly are most troublesome to gather. One of my regular customers had recommended moss from behind a waterfall underneath the full moon, silk of quartz spider, and wool from a highland caterpillar to me. They heard from a renowned professor at their school that they possessed unique healing abilities. It wasn't solid information to go off, but my curiosity was piqued. I desperately need to get better at healing potions. Despite how difficult gathering the ingredients had been, it still proved to be a lovely adventure and an excuse to enter the Feylands myself. I haven't regretted it for a second. It's nice to know that I'm strong enough to handle a small excursion inside the ring, even if it's ironic I got injured while looking for healing supplies. Perhaps I'll attempt the recipe again sometime soon. It is always fun trying to perfect the finer details. How long to stir, what order to add ingredients, how hot to make the fire. It's only a matter of minutes before I feel my thoughts begin to drift, from potion brewing to how soft my bed is and how comforting I find the old cabins creaking. My gaze lingers on the empty pillow beside me for a few moments until my heavy lids slowly blink shut. Sitting up straight in bed, I turned wide-eyed to the location of what sounds like a crash. I'm unsure where it is exactly, but hopefully it's from outside. I think back to when I shut my door earlier, suddenly unsure if I remembered to latch it. Maybe something just fell off the shelf? Or has something wandered into my backyard? Slowly, I crawl out of bed, heart caught in my throat. In the dark, I attempt to quietly navigate the ridiculously creaky floorboards. Softly creeping up to a window, I slowly peek out the curtains and step into my backyard. It's still completely dark out. Luckily, the glowing will-o-wisps that surround the woods cast a small radius of light, just enough to notice the erratic movement in some nearby foliage. But I can't clearly make out what it is. I think something might be injured. Why else would a creature be thrashing and flailing around on the ground at night? Perhaps a pair of woodland creatures got into a tussle over some food. As I hurry to the front door, I simply clutch my cloak in my arms, not taking the time to throw it on. A glass bottle hidden within its pockets clink as they shift. I bolt out into the backyard. The rustling of weeds continues as I rush over, but as I move closer, it falls strangely quiet. A little off-put, I cautiously tiptoe over the tall grass and peer in. What? I've never seen something like this before. The composition of their body reminds me of slimes, but have I ever heard of slimes taking such a sophisticated form? That can't be right. But maybe. But that small detail aside, the fact of the matter is that there is a naked stranger in my backyard in the dead of night, rolling around in the grass. They had initially seemed alarmed when they saw me. Deeming me not a threat, they returned to studying their limbs, seeming puzzled. I have to admit, I'm a bit dumbfounded. They act as though they've never seen their own body before. Not only that, but they never open their eyes. It appears they have several floating eyes in their body instead. I shake my head slightly at myself. Now isn't the time to scrutinize. As I go to hold out my cloak for them, there's a light clinging off the potions. The sudden noise startles the stranger. Here, you should put this on. Something must have happened to them for them to be disoriented. Studying my face for a moment, they scrunch their own face as though trying to focus on my words. Tilting their head, their eyes trail down to my arm to the cloak. I smile and nod reassuringly. It's okay. I'm just trying to help. You should wrap this around yourself so you don't catch a cold. Could they even get sick? I wasn't sure, but it seemed better off to be on the safe side. The stranger reaches out and touches the cloak, looking up at me. I nod again, and they ease the cloak from me and grip it as though the fabric could slip right through their hands. Let me help you with that? I gently take the now slightly damp cloak from their hands and wrap it around their shoulders. I smile and step back. There. I bet that's better. They turn side to side, examining the cloak before raising their arms and watching how the fabric moves. I have never seen anyone so mesmerized by a simple cloak. So, what can I call you? They look up at me, once again tilting their head. I suddenly realize that they might not be able to understand me. Oh, this is going to be tricky. I can't help but wonder where they came from or how they made their way to my doorstep. If only I could ask. I glance around. In the dim light of the nearby orb, I can see my breath fog the air around it. Without a second layer of clothing protecting me, I can feel the slight bite of the crisp air. Step 1 is getting out of the cold. Step 2? Well, we'll cross that bridge once we're warm. I wave slightly to the stranger before gesturing for them to follow me. I suspect they can't understand my words, so I hope they'll be able to understand my gestures instead. They study my movements before nodding and attempting to stand with their wobbly legs. They nearly fall over as they pitch to the side completely unbalanced. I offer them an arm to hold on to. They hesitate before accepting it. Once I smile and nod, they lean more onto me as I guide them into my cabin. It's as I thought. They're a newborn fowl, learning to walk for the first time. Or perhaps a drunkard? I guide them over to my kitchen stool and help them sit down. Rushing to close the door behind us, I spot a small slime trail. Excuse me? As I walk back over to the stranger who is looking up and down and all around my cabin, their head is on a constant swivel and their mouth is gaping. They turn to me when I speak, giving me a warm smile. I'm happy that they at least seem to feel safe around me. If you can understand me, could you nod a couple times? Their face scrunches in what seems to be confusion. Maybe they don't speak the same way humans do? The stranger opens their mouth, letting out a few strangled sounds. They seem to somehow be more shocked than me by this. A few tense moments pass, and I let out a small gasp as it dawns on me that perhaps this particular person does not have ability to communicate verbally. Rushing up my bookcase, I frantically search through my cumbersome encyclopedias for some recipe that could help me here. I already know that there are no complete comprehend language potions hidden somewhere in my inventory. My regulars have no need for such an extravagant potion. It's not like I'm serving ambassadors or lavish traveling bards after all. Although, I can't help but think that such a potion would be terribly convenient right now. Pages flip in rapid succession as my search continues. In my peripherals, my surprised guest slowly shifts from watching me intently to staring at their own limbs, prodding and pinching their skin. A small yelp is heard occasionally. Finally, the words comprehend language written in bold letters. My index finger traces each line of the page quickly as I read. Touch any creature or text and gain the ability to understand that language and translate your own thoughts into that language for 1 hour. An exasperated sigh escapes when I realize it is only a spell with no simple recipe for a potion found anywhere. Sigils, tonics, potions, sure, no problem. It was something I was confident in and some would even say masterful at. But spellcasting? This is so unfortunate. But I need to be able to understand my guests to help them. I take a gulp and abruptly stand up from my desk, nearly knocking my chair over in the process. The stranger sits up straight, stiff as a board. I refuse to take my eyes off the spell instructions. Precision is crucial. A pinch of salt, a dash of soot, L-O-Q, omnis, ligua, loquams lingua? Well, the worst outcome of the spell would just be harm to the caster, right? I have enough mana for this. With a sharp inhale and slow exhale, I make quick work of procuring the required materials from my kitchen. When I enter the room once more, I notice my guest holding my copy of Witchcraft for Dunces, as they hold it to their face, as though seemingly reading intensely. However, the book is upside down and it seems to have sunken into their hands. Looking up at me, they give me a sheepish smile, and I can't help but smile back. I motion to the book, offering to extract it. They hold their hand out to me, allowing me to lightly pull the book out. There's some resistance, but once free, there's an actual suction sound as it escapes the gelatinous substance. A thin layer of slime now coats it. Setting it gingerly to the side, I resume by breaching exercises as I continue my spellcasting preparation. Eventually, I steel my resolve and make a move. They don't seem to be nervous, just looking up at me while a searching expression. I smile in a way that I hope is reassuring, gulping as I do. I don't want to frighten them once I start spellcasting. Pointing to the spellbook on my desk, I then motion to point to my guest, miming, talking, and then cup my ears. Their forehead wrinkles, as much as a slime can wrinkle. Trying to non-verbally communicate about spellcasting is proving much more challenging than I anticipated. To my surprise, they point their mouth, making the same sounds they did earlier, pointing before pointing to me and miming listening. Excited, I nod. I think they understand the gist of what I'm trying to do. I hold out my hand towards their own, resting at their side, trying to ask if I can touch them. They seem puzzled at first, unsure what I'm asking for them. They mirror my movement awkwardly and extend their own hand. I gently poke the outstretched hand. They don't move away. Slowly, I slide my hand into theirs. They gawk and give me a few experimental squeezes, then I look up. Chuckling, I shake our hand up and down like a handshake, and their own wobbly yet stiff arm reflect the movement. They emit a noise simultaneously resembling a laugh and the sound of jello being dropped on the floor. But I feel the tension from before lessen now. Now it is time. Closing my eyes and taking a deep breath, I begin. With my unoccupied hand, I take the salt and soot and toss the mixture into the air. Loqui omnes lingua. Immediately, I feel a pinprick sensation and my eyes shoot open. A trail of fizzling light courses from my hands into their body. Do spells look like this inside of a non-translucent people too? Having an internal moral dilemma about whether or not I should stop casting and remove my hands, I monitor the stranger's reaction. It shouldn't hurt, and they don't seem to be in pain. A few more tense moments pass, and the magic was surging through their body flicker and fades. Both of us are quiet as I try to think of something to say in their language, but strangely, nothing comes to my mind instructing me. No inner voice telling me what to say or that, like it normally would. There's a growing pit in my stomach, but I somehow failed. Can you understand me? I almost want to facepalm at that. I thought maybe I just had to speak and no spell would work its magic, but no. I very clearly just spoke in my own language just now. I realize I'm still clutching onto the stranger's arms and let go to release them defeatingly, but their grip tightens. I search their face for some sort of clue of how they may be feeling, and I'm shocked by their expression. Yes?